This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 813, The Lore Looking Glass. Enjoy. And now comes, the elephant in the room. What are the biggest challenges to combat currently? Tick rate, matching player power. Because if they adjust the tick rate, then they also, of course, have to fundamentally change all the ways all the different bosses work. You get a more responsive game, but it also means the boss will attack you 2 to 3 times as fast if you make the tick rate that fast. So they would have to make those kind of adjustments as well. And
reaction times are not happy about that.
Yeah. And I mean, we love to talk about the tick rate, how when you're, doing combat and you eat and you drink and, you run around trying to evade and whatnot, there's a delay. And David has basically said in the past that you just got to start thinking in ticks and, getting accustomed to yourself to the point where you can count out those 0.6 seconds and know when you have to move.
Basically a turn-based game.
Exactly.
Really short.
Exactly. That's what it is. So, and the second one was matching player power in terms of, what do you do with all the excess power creep out there and give the players something to do. And that led into them talking that, what they really need is just more time to fix, balance, and, effectively take away from players while ensuring that they give them something new that is more balanced in its place. And the discussion on this came up is that, at RuneFest a number of years ago, Montpie, and I think it was the RuneFest I was at, said that, we're going to fix 4-tick auto attacking and we're going to bring out a replacement to it. And that, of course, still hasn't arrived because it's a question of, do you fix magic in terms of combat or do you put out a new boss? That's what it comes down to.
Pie's been making some incredible things. The combat people basically worship the ground he stands on. And I think lately what he's been doing is putting out a whole bunch of fixes that people have been asking for years, but he just only now has had the opportunity to do them. So I think something here is the combat people just really need to be able to be given that opportunity to just go back and fix some things, take the time to balance and whatnot. But a lot of the time, people are also angling for a new boss at the same time, and they can't do everything at once.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I'm just glad that we're not getting the axe for once. Let someone else get the Reaper. Don't fear the Reaper.
Yeah, and from what it sounds like the Combat Council has their ear fairly close to the ground in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. When it comes to what the PvM and combat community is after.
I don't think you have to have your ear to the ground. No.
They make
sure you hear.
Yeah. But, I think overall this has been a good Q&A, and then we, get to the fun topic of death costs. And here's the way they see it from the Combat Council, and I think we largely hit on this in our death cost bit. And if you're doing PvM, they say in general you're making a profit. When you learn a boss, you die a lot. And, if you have a 20 mil death cost, you're going to make that cost back, but it will be made back over time. And that's the key word there. It'll be made back over time. They also factor in consumables as well. And, they want to address death costs. They're too high at the top end. And they said whether it's some kind of soft cap or a hard cap and where those caps would be, those are all valid options to look at. And, I think that's basically what the conclusion of our podcast was this question right here.
Yep. Exactly.
I think any kind of caps involved would have to be adjusted in some way as far as inflation went. So that makes that kind of a tricky subject to get into.
Yeah.
1 million, not what it was before.
Right. And, I mean, it becomes just a question of what's acceptable, right, in terms of death. Because if you're going to go to Telos and you have 15 million death preset, as we talked about in the past, and you get hit with a connection lag, is that really your fault?
Yeah.
or, you know, if you're trying to, you know, do some no food run, that is your fault. So
yeah, like
and
a matter of seeing where to put in the high risk.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different things along that perspective as well that need to be addressed. And
well, why couldn't, I mean, I think you could solve a lot. We have a hard mode, right? What if hard mode was also tied not only to higher mechanics or more mechanics and all that, but a higher def cost? Normal was normal. It's balanced the way it is, whereas easy would be pretty light def cost so that you could practice it. So that, like, when you're good enough, now you bump it up to normal. You're like, okay, if I do die, I'll just take the normal def cost. Let's say you make hard mode a little bit more rewarding.
But when you do that, you also have to look into the loot of normal and tone that down as well. And you also, of course, need to tone down the difficulty in this. And for every boss that's out there, you need to do this. And, you know, if I was doing this, if I was designing this, I'd use something in the Elder God Wars dungeon as a blueprint template for this in terms of, you know, maybe, you know, 3 or 4 cases in this dungeon. And then if it's successful after that, both in terms of, you know, hey, maybe this one's going to have a limited death cost based on how your difficulty was, or if you're just learning it or something to that effect, then if this blueprint is successful, then you can take it out to various bosses on a case-by-case basis. So you do your Teloses and your Viragos and your Araxors and Nexus and so on and so forth. And over time, just roll them out to, you know, the hotspots as if it was. And that's how I see this problem being addressed going forward. I don't see a blanket, you know, just, you know, coming out of nowhere. We're going to change the way death costs work and bam, it's done. I don't see that happening.
I definitely like the idea of using new in-game content as a prototype as opposed to, say, a beta, which no one really does in practice.
Right. And when it comes to the RuneScape betas, no one takes them seriously.
And especially with combat.
Yeah,
I mean that's the worst.
That's how we got EOC, the first generation, but that's a topic for a different day. You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe or leave a comment.